My mill threw away my mother's ashes because they ruined the shelf aesthetic. I stood in the living room of my mother-in-law's pristine suburban Chicago home, staring at the empty spot on the mahogany shelf where my mother's urn used to sit. The shelf was now a curated display of minimalist decor, white ceramic vases, a single succulent, and a framed photo of my husband, David, and his mother, Linda, smiling at some winery, my mother's ashes, which I'd carefully placed there 6 months ago after her funeral, were gone. My chest tightened as I scanned the room, hoping I'd somehow misplaced the urn. But deep down, I knew. Linda's voice broke the silence from the kitchen. "Oh, you noticed the shelf," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel as she walked in. "It looks so much better now, doesn't it? That urn was just clashing with the aesthetic." I turned to her, my voice shaking. "Linda, where is it?" She tilted her head, her perfectly highlighted hair catching the light. "Where's what, dear?" "My mother's ashes. The urn. It was right there." I pointed at the shelf, my finger trembling. Linda's smile didn't falter. "Oh, that old thing? It was so heavy and dreary. I got rid of it. The shelf needed breathing room." My knees buckled, and I gripped the arm of the couch to steady myself. "Got rid of it? What do you mean? Got rid of it?" She sighed, like I was overreacting. "I donated it to a thrift shop. Or maybe it went in the trash. Honestly, I don't remember. It's not like you were doing anything with it." The room spun. My mother, who raised me alone after my dad bailed, who worked double shifts at the diner to pay for my college, who laughed through her chemo sessions to keep me from crying. Her ashes were gone because they didn't match Linda's decor. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand how she could be so callous. But all that came out was a choked, "How could you?" Linda shrugged. "It's just ashes, Sarah. You can't hold on to the past forever. Besides, David agreed it was time to move on." My head snapped up. David, my husband, knew? I turned toward the hallway where he'd disappeared to take a work call. The betrayal hit like a punch to the gut. I trusted him to protect my mother's memory, to understand what those ashes meant to me. We'd fought so hard to make this marriage work, bridging the gap between my working-class roots and his upper-middle-class family. But this was a line I didn't know if I could forgive. I stormed past Linda, ignoring her protests, and found David in the guest bedroom, pacing with his phone. "Did you know?" I demanded, my voice raw. "Did you know she threw out my mom's ashes?" He froze, his eyes wide. "Sarah, Don't lie to me, David. Did you know?" He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. "She mentioned something about the shelf, but I didn't think she'd actually... I thought she was just talking." "You thought she was just talking?" I laughed, bitter and sharp. "She threw my mother's ashes in the trash because they didn't match her vibe. And you didn't think to stop her?" "I didn't know she'd go that far," he said, reaching for me. I stepped back, my hands clenched into fists. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I'll talk to her. We'll figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out," I snapped. "They're gone. My mom is gone. Again." I left him standing there and walked out to the car, my breath hitching as I tried not to cry. The weight of it all, Linda's cruelty, David's complicity, the loss of the last tangible piece of my mother, pressed down on me. I didn't know where to go or what to do, but I couldn't stay in that house another second. As I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the perfectly manicured lawn, one thought burned through the haze. I wasn't going to let this go. Not without answers. Not without making someone pay. I drove aimlessly through the Chicago suburbs, the streetlights blurring as my tears finally broke free. My mother's urn wasn't just a thing, it was her laughter, her strength, the way she'd hug me after a bad day. Linda had taken that from me. And David's failure to stop her felt like he'd chosen his mother's side over mine. The pain carved a hollow space in my chest, but beneath it, anger simmered, sharp and unyielding. I couldn't go home to the apartment I shared with David, not with his betrayal hanging between us. Instead, I checked into a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with flickering neon signs and stained carpets, and collapsed onto the bed. Sleep didn't come. My mind replayed Linda's smug shrug, her casual dismissal of my mother's memory. I thought about my mom's life, how she'd clawed her way out of poverty, how she'd taught me to stand up for myself. Letting this go would be betraying her. But the social fallout loomed large. Linda was the matriarch of David's family, the one who hosted holiday dinners and sent passive-aggressive group texts about family values. If I pushed back, I'd be the outsider, the dramatic daughter-in-law who couldn't let things go. David's sister, Emily, already gave me side-eye at gatherings, whispering to cousins about my rough background. This could fracture the fragile acceptance I'd earned in their world. Worse, my marriage was on the line. David and I had been together 5 years, married for 2, and we'd worked hard to balance our differences. He was the calm to my storm, the planner to my impulsiveness. But now, every memory of his support felt tainted. Had he always been this spineless when it came to his mom? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our texts, looking for proof he still cared. Instead, I found a message from Linda from last week. Tell Sarah to stop moping about her mom. It's been months. My grip tightened until my knuckles whitened. She'd been plotting this, and David hadn't warned me. The psychological toll was relentless. I felt like I was grieving my mother all over again, but this time it was mixed with rage and isolation. My best friend, Jess, lived in Seattle, and calling her at 2 a.m. felt unfair. My coworkers were friendly but distant. I couldn't imagine unloading this on them. I was alone, and the weight of that made every breath feel like a fight. I stared at the motel ceiling, the water stains mocking my indecision. Part of me wanted to confront Linda, to make her feel the pain she'd caused. Another part wanted to crawl back to David, to pretend this never happened for the sake of our life together. But the loudest part, the one that sounded like my mom's voice, told me to fight. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to let Linda's cruelty slide, but I needed to be smart. Screaming at her wouldn't bring the urn back. I needed proof, something to show the world what she'd done. I checked out of the motel and drove to a coffee shop, where I opened my laptop and started digging. Linda's thrift shop comment stuck with me. If there was even a chance the urn was still out there, I had to find it. And if it was truly gone, I'd make sure everyone knew who was responsible. Sitting in the coffee shop, the bitter scent of espresso grounding me, I started my search. Linda's vague mention of a thrift shop or trash gave me 2 paths. I pulled up a map of thrift stores near her house in Naperville, narrowing it down to 3 within a 10-mile radius she'd likely visit. Her type, obsessed with appearances, wouldn't be caught dead at a grimy resale shop, so I focused on the upscale ones. I called the first, describing the urn, bronze, etched with a simple rose pattern, about 10 inches tall. The clerk was polite but hadn't seen it. The second shop had nothing either. By the third, my hope was thinning, but the woman on the phone paused. A bronze urn? We got something like that last week. It's in the back, not on display yet. My heart raced. Can you hold it? I'll be there in 20 minutes. I grabbed my keys and drove, weaving through traffic, praying it was Mom's. At the shop, a quaint place with overpriced vintage lamps, the clerk brought out the urn. My breath caught. It was hers. The rose etching, the slight dent from when I dropped it moving in with David. I clutched it to my chest, relief flooding me, but anger followed fast. Linda hadn't just tossed it. She'd deliberately handed it off like it was junk. I bought the urn back for $15, a sickening bargain for my mother's remains. In the car, I ran my fingers over the etching, whispering an apology to Mom, but holding it wasn't enough. I needed to know why Linda did this and how David let it happen. Back at the coffee shop, I dug deeper. I checked Linda's social media, hoping for clues. Her Instagram was a curated shrine to her perfect life. Photos of her shelf, Son's urn, with captions about decluttering for peace. One post, dated 2 days ago, showed her at a local dump, captioned, "Clearing out the old to make room for the new." My stomach churned. Had she lied about the thrift shop to cover something worse? I texted Jess, needing someone to ground me. She called immediately, her voice steady. "Sarah, this is messed up. You need to confront David, but get more first. Check his texts with Linda. I hesitated. Snooping felt wrong, but Jess was right. At our apartment, while David was at work, I accessed his iPad, which synced his messages. My hands shook as I scrolled through his texts with Linda. A week ago, she'd written, "The urn's gotta go. It's depressing, Sarah. And the shelf looks tacky." David's reply, "Talk to her, Mom." I don't want to fight. No defense of me, no mention of Mom's importance, just spineless avoidance. Another text from 3 days ago stopped me cold. Linda, "It's done. Thrift shop took it. Tell Sarah if she asks." David, "Thanks, Mom. I'll handle it." Handle it? He'd lied to my face, acting shocked when I confronted him. The betrayal cut deeper than Linda's cruelty. I took screenshots, my resolve hardening. I wasn't just fighting for Mom anymore. I was fighting for myself, for the truth. Linda and David thought they could erase my pain to keep their perfect little world. They were about to learn I wasn't that easy to dismiss. With the urn safe in my car and screenshots of David's text burning a hole in my phone, I felt a clarity I hadn't in days. Linda's cruelty wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. It was calculated. And David's complicity was undeniable. I drove to Jess's parents' cabin in Wisconsin, a 4-hour trip, to clear my head and plan. The solitude of the woods gave me space to process. I sat by the lake, the urn beside me, and pieced together the full truth. Linda had orchestrated this to erase my mother's presence. And David, too weak to stand up to her, had let it happen. The texts showed he'd known for days, maybe weeks, and chosen to protect his mom's feelings over mine. I called David that night, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "I found the urn at a thrift shop, like your mom said. I also found your texts." Silence stretched on his end, heavy with guilt. "You lied to me. David, you let her throw away my mom's ashes and pretended you didn't know." "Sarah, I didn't mean," he started, but I cut him off. "You meant to avoid conflict. You meant to keep the peace with your mom. But you didn't mean to protect me." I hung up, my hands shaking. Confronting Linda came next. I drove back to Naperville the next day and showed up at her house unannounced. She opened the door, her smile faltering when she saw the urn in my hands. "Sarah, what's this about?" she asked, her voice laced with false sweetness. "You threw out my mother's ashes because they didn't fit your shelf," I said, stepping inside. "You planned it, and David knew. I have proof." I held up my phone, showing the texts. Her face paled, but she recovered quickly, crossing her arms. "You're being dramatic. It was clutter. I did you a favor." "A favor?" I laughed, sharp and cold. "You desecrated my mother's memory, and I'm done letting you control this family." The truth was out, but resolution loomed. I'd recovered the urn, but the damage to my marriage and trust in David's family was permanent. As I stood in Linda's living room, I weighed my options. Forgiveness felt impossible. Linda's actions were unforgivable. And David's betrayal cut too deep. Acceptance would mean swallowing my pain. And I wasn't that person. Indecision gnawed at me, but I needed to act. I left Linda's house and went straight to my laptop. I wrote a detailed post on a local community Facebook group, naming Linda and sharing the screenshots. My mother-in-law threw out my mother's ashes because they ruined her shelf aesthetic. My husband knew and did nothing. This is who they are. I attached photos of the urn and Linda's Instagram post for proof. Within hours, the post exploded. Neighbors, friends, even distant relatives commented, horrified. Linda's reputation, her carefully curated image, crumbled. David called, begging me to take it down. But I refused. "You made your choice," I told him. "Now live with it." I moved out of our apartment that week, the urn safely on my new nightstand. Divorce papers were next. I couldn't stay with someone who'd let my mother's memory be trashed. Linda's social circle shunned her, and David's family fractured under the public shame. It wasn't the urn I'd avenged. It was my mother's dignity and my own self-respect. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained something fiercer, the strength to never let anyone diminish me again.